Denmark just shocked the world with a direct challenge to the United States. At the center of the clash is Greenland, an icy, strategic territory the US has long eyed for control. But Denmark isn't backing down. Tensions exploded after US Vice President JD Vance visited Greenland and hinted at American intentions to expand influence on the island. Denmark saw it as a step too far. In response, Denmark's Prime Minister issued a clear warning: Greenland isn't up for negotiation, and foreign pressure won't decide its future. This isn't just political posturing, it's a serious break between allies, and a sign that Denmark is ready to stand its ground. What started as diplomatic friction has now turned into a global flashpoint, and as this unfolds, one thing is certain: Trump and his team didn't see this coming. Let's break down exactly what happened, and what this means for the future of US-European relations. The catalyst. Tensions between Denmark and the United States took a sharp turn after US Vice President JD Vance made a high-profile visit to Greenland's remote Pituffik space base in late March 2025. The visit, already a symbolic show of American interest in the Arctic, quickly escalated into controversy. During his speech to military personnel stationed there, Vance criticized Denmark's handling of Greenland's defense. He claimed the island's security had been neglected and implied that Greenland would be better off aligning more closely with the United States. These remarks did not go unnoticed. In Denmark, the response was immediate and firm. The visit was seen not just as a diplomatic misstep, but as a deliberate provocation. Danish leaders viewed the comments as disrespectful, not only to their government, but to the long-standing partnership between the two nations. Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen pushed back, stating that while Denmark was open to discussions on Arctic cooperation, the aggressive tone from the US was unacceptable and unproductive. What might have been a routine diplomatic engagement instead became the spark that reignited a long-simmering debate over sovereignty, control, and influence in the Arctic, one that Denmark now seems fully prepared to confront. The fallout from Vice President Vance's remarks didn't linger in diplomatic silence for long. Within days, Denmark responded, not with more statements from behind podiums in Copenhagen, but with a bold display of presence and unity on Greenlandic soil. Denmark's firm stance. On April 3, 2025, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen arrived in Greenland aboard the Navy inspection vessel Væderen. She wasn't alone. Standing beside her were both the incoming Greenlandic Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen and the outgoing leader Mute B. Agade. The visual alone was powerful. Denmark and Greenland side by side, ready to confront the rising pressure from one of the world's most powerful nations. Frederiksen used the moment to draw a firm line. Her address was measured but unshakable, rejecting any notion that Greenland's fate could be influenced or decided by external powers. It was a direct message not only to Washington, but to the global community watching this story unfold. Sovereignty was not up for negotiation. While asserting Denmark's position, she also left the door open for constructive dialogue. Frederiksen emphasized that Denmark remained open to US collaboration in the Arctic, especially on security issues, but the terms of that collaboration had to be built on mutual respect and partnership, not on pressure or unilateral ambitions. In essence, Denmark made its position clear. It was not retreating, it was standing tall, and it expected its allies to treat it as an equal. But would the United States back down in the face of Denmark's defiance, or double down on its Arctic ambitions? US response and international implications. The answer for now seems to be somewhere in between. Washington's interest in Greenland is far from new. During his previous term, President Donald Trump famously floated the idea of purchasing the island, citing its immense strategic value in the Arctic region. That suggestion was met with global disbelief and outright rejection from Denmark. Yet despite the backlash, the idea never truly disappeared. It simply went quiet. Now, with tensions reigniting, it's back on the table in a new form. In the aftermath of Vance's controversial visit, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen in a bid to steady the relationship. Publicly, Rubio emphasized the importance of the US-Denmark partnership, describing it as strong and ongoing. However, his remarks also included a careful nod to Greenland's autonomy, noting that the island's people have the right to self-determination. While diplomatically worded, that statement introduced a subtle but significant shift in the conversation, one that hinted at future possibilities the US might still pursue, depending on how Greenland's internal politics evolve. Beyond Washington, the international community has been watching the situation unfold with growing concern. European leaders in particular have voiced unease over what they see as an aggressive approach from the United States. There are fears that this behavior could set a dangerous precedent, challenging the integrity of international agreements and the norms that govern territorial sovereignty. The European Union has responded with a call for restraint, urging all parties to respect established borders, treaties, and the autonomy of nations and regions. In the eyes of many global observers, this isn't just a regional dispute over a frozen island. It's a test of the post-war international order itself. Amid the mounting pressure from both Washington and the international community, one voice has remained crucial but often overshadowed: Greenland's own. While world powers debate over its strategic value, the people who actually live there are stepping forward to make their position clear. Greenland's perspective. While much of the spotlight has focused on the political tension between Denmark and the United States, the voice at the center of it all belongs to Greenland itself. As an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark, Greenland has long maintained its own government and internal affairs, while Denmark handles foreign policy and defense. But over the past decade, the island has been steadily moving toward greater self-governance, and perhaps one day, full independence. For Greenland's leaders, this latest controversy has underscored the importance of that autonomy. The desire to shape their own future on their own terms has never been clearer. There is growing concern among Greenlanders that global powers are treating their island as a strategic pawn rather than a homeland with a distinct identity, culture, and will of its own. Incoming Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen has spoken openly about this. His message has emphasized unity, not just within Greenland, but between Greenland and Denmark. At a time when external pressure threatens to divide or distract, Nielsen has called for a firm and united front, one that ensures Greenland's voice isn't lost in the noise of international diplomacy. Greenland isn't just reacting to global attention, it's asserting itself. As its leadership continues to navigate a complex web of opportunity and pressure, the island is sending a clear message. The future of Greenland should be written by Greenlanders, not by Washington, not by Copenhagen, but by the people who call the Arctic home. But even as Greenland finds its voice and asserts its autonomy, the broader question still remains: what happens next? The standoff has made one thing clear: this is no longer just about territory or alliances, it's about the future. And with the eyes of the world now focused on this icy flashpoint, the decisions made in the coming weeks could reshape the Arctic and global diplomacy for years to come. The path forward. With emotions still high and global attention fixed on the Arctic, the road ahead remains anything but clear. Denmark has made it known that it's open to continued dialogue with the United States. The shared interests in Arctic security, climate monitoring, and military cooperation remain significant. But while Denmark is willing to sit at the table, it's not willing to concede its principles. Copenhagen has drawn a line. Greenland is not a bargaining chip, and its people must have the final say in shaping their future. For the United States, Greenland continues to represent a critical strategic interest. From military positioning to resource potential and Arctic influence, the island holds undeniable value. But this pursuit of strategic advantage now runs headlong into questions of sovereignty, international law, and alliance integrity. The US faces a challenge: how to navigate its goals without undermining the very values it claims to uphold on the world stage. Denmark's response has resonated beyond its own borders. Its firm, principled stance reminds the world that small nations still have a voice, and that sovereignty cannot be sidelined, even under pressure from a global superpower. The implications stretch far beyond the ice-covered shores of Greenland. What happens next could shape the way nations engage in the Arctic, test the strength of NATO partnerships, and redefine the boundaries of diplomatic respect. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: the world is watching closely, and the next moves, by both Denmark and the United States, could set the tone for international relations in a rapidly changing world.